With the Italian Parliament in deadlock, Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has been drawn into the debate over legal recognition and protection for gay couples. He's committed to bringing the Civil Unions Bill to fruition, threatening a confidence vote in his government in a bid to galvanise the stalled discussions. I hope that in a few days we can end the debating game being played in the Senate, then go to Parliament and approve the bill quickly, he said. At issue is whether or not to allow a partner in a same-sex couple to adopt the biological child of the other partner. Pro-Vatican senators within Renzi's Democratic Party are refusing to back the bill if adoption is permitted.
A handful of Greenpeace protesters tried to blockade the venue where EU and US negotiators met for trade talks on Monday. Brussels and Washington are discussing a free trade deal that governments say would increase the size of the EU economy by 0.5% of GDP every year. Opponents believe it will lead to a race to the bottom on consumer protection.
Greenpeace has blocked US and EU negotiators from discussing a trade deal that threatens democracy, our environment, social standards and working conditions. In fact, this trade deal is not at all about trade. It's about transferring powers from the people to big business. What they call barriers to trade are in fact the safeguards that protect our air and food from being poisoned.
Those claims have been repeatedly denied by EU and US officials. In fact, the talks today did go ahead. Both sides hope to reach a final agreement on the text by the end of the year.
Some of the biggest names in British film and television have made a plea for the safety of unaccompanied migrant children. Jude Law travelled to the so-called jungle camp in northern France, days before at least half of it is due to be demolished.
They're planning to demolish another 2/3 of the camp. This is a community that they've built, and it offers a minor thread to the children who are here unaccompanied. And without those, who knows what's going to happen to them.
While there, he read out an open letter calling for those children with families in the UK to be allowed to stay with them while their asylum applications are heard. French authorities say the demolition will affect around 1,000 people. Aid agencies estimate the figure will be at least 3 times that amount, including more than 100 unaccompanied children.
Death and destruction. More than 150 people in all are now said to have been killed in bomb attacks in the Syrian cities of Damascus and Homs. Here in the capital, 180 were also wounded when 4 explosions hit the southern Saida Zainab district. I was sleeping at home upstairs when I heard the first blast. It happened right here. About 5 minutes later, when I was calling the ambulance, the second bomb went off. In Homs, dozens were killed in twin car bomb explosions. ISIL says it was behind the attacks in both cities. Suffering and destruction here in Syria has worsened further since Russia launched airstrikes. US Secretary of State John Kerry said on Sunday that a ceasefire in Syria was still possible. He added that he'd reached a provisional agreement with his Russian counterpart.
A cessation of hostilities, a hudna, is possible over the course of these next hours.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad says he's ready for a ceasefire on the condition that terrorists don't turn a lull in fighting to their advantage and the country's backing insurgents stop their support.
In Brazil, it's reported an arrest warrant has been issued for the man behind President Dilma Rousseff's successful election campaign. It's understood João Santana is one of a number of people targeted in searches and arrests in the cities of Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro and Salvador. The 63-year-old is not in the country at the moment. Police confirmed more than 300 officers are involved in the so-called 23rd phase of Operation Car Wash Probe. One media outlet said some of the raids were also aimed at an engineering conglomerate, Grupo Odebrecht. Dozens of executives and politicians have been arrested or are under suspicion of overcharging state firms and using part of the proceeds to bribe members of Rousseff's ruling coalition.
Mourners in a Michigan town have held a prayer service for the victims of America's latest mass shooting. 6 people were killed by a gunman in Kalamazoo on Saturday night. The pastor told the congregation there was no easy answer as to why such a thing could happen, as the victims' names were displayed. Police have arrested taxi driver Jason Dalton. It's been confirmed the 45-year-old worked for Uber. It's alleged he shot his victims at random at 3 locations.
He has no criminal history that we know of, no incidents, nothing in his background that we know of, or anything that we know about him that would lead us to believe he was capable of this type of behavior.
Police are investigating reports that the suspect collected fares between attacks. Among the dead, gunned down with his father outside a car showroom, was 17-year-old Tyler Smith. An official from the school he attended said the challenge would be to help students still believe in the world.
Australian officials have come under fire over the contentious case of Asha, a baby born in Australia to Nepalese parents. It's been decided that she and her family will be deported back to a detention centre on the Pacific island of Nauru, angering groups calling for them to be granted asylum in Australia. Government officials were worried her case would set a precedent.
This family will be treated the same as the next family that we consider will be treated, and that's what you would expect, because we are not going to allow people smugglers to get out a message that if you seek assistance in an Australian hospital, somehow that is your formula to becoming an Australian citizen.
In January, baby Asha was flown from Nauru to a hospital in Brisbane to be treated for severe burns. Doctors refused to discharge her if she was to be sent straight back to the centre. Following an outpouring of public support, Dutton had Asha and her family temporarily moved to an Australian community detention facility.
Fiji has embarked on a massive clean-up operation after what's described as the worst cyclone ever to hit the South Pacific island nation. Local authorities now say at least 20 people were killed by Cyclone Winston, and the total is expected to rise. The storm struck late on Saturday with winds of over 300 kilometres an hour, flooding low-lying areas, flattening remote villages and cutting off communications.
Power lines have gone down all over the country, and roofing, iron, glass, live electric wires and other hazardous materials pose serious threats to public safety. We are working hard to make your streets and communities secure once again, but that will take time.
The Prime Minister said the storm had left people stunned. Almost 8,000 remain in emergency shelters where they'd taken refuge before the cyclone. Crops have been wiped. Remote parts of Fiji's 300 islands. In New Zealand, a ceremony has been held to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the earthquake that struck Christchurch, killing 185 people and destroying the city's central business district. Friends and families of the dead and those who were senior politicians. After a minute's silence at the exact moment the earthquake struck, mourners threw flowers into the River Avon, which flows through Christchurch. CCTV footage from the time shows the impact of the quake as goods on supermarket shelves came crashing down. The tremor, which measured 6.3, struck just 10 kilometres from Christchurch, then New Zealand's second most populous city. It damaged infrastructure already weakened by an earthquake months earlier. More than 100 people died when one building, which housed a TV headquarters, collapsed. A later inquiry found its design was faulty. There have also been complaints that the official inquiry's progress has been slow and over insurance payouts.